embryonal, that is in the early stages of its development. So that is more embryonal stages or embryonal forms of cells will be there found in the malignant type of tumors. So that is that particular condition you normally say them as anaplasia. So generally speaking, benign tumors are usually well differentiated and less anaplastic. Malignant tumors are less differentiated and more anaplastic. Clear? So I think these things we have already discussed in the previous class. And the second point, what we have discussed between the benign and neoplasm is the rate of growth. So in the rate of growth, again we have seen the benign tumors usually grows slower in comparison to the malignant tumor. That is in general. It's not always true, but most of the times benign tumors grows slower in rate as comparison to the malignant tumors. And again, in that part, we have already discussed again that it is not because that the tumor in the cells divides more faster. No, the main differentiating point which determines the rate of growth is the number of cells which is dividing. Okay, so in case of I think in the last class we have already discussed or have already explained to you about these aspects. So in case of benign tumors, the number of cells dividing cells, the cells which are in dividing stage is less in comparison to the malignant cells, and because of that only you find that malignant tumors goes faster than the benign tumors. Benign tumors usually grow slower because the number of cells is dividing is less. Otherwise, the time duration for a single cell to divide into two cells is the same, whether it is a normal cell, whether it is a tumor cell, or whether it is a malignant cell. The basic difference comes place only in the replicative pool. That is a term we have already used, replicative pool or replicative fraction. So that is what you normally say it as the number of dividing cells which is dividing at any given point of time. So that is more in case of benign tumors, more in case of malignant tumors than the benign tumors. Then in case of normal cells, it is much lesser. So that is a point of differentiation between in case of the rate of growth. So continuing with that, the other important features of differentiation between the benign and malignant tumors is the invasion and metastasis. So, is the slides visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, invasion, the other important, so we have discussed or we have seen there are four major points of differentiation. One is how to differentiate the benign and malignant tumors. In case of benign tumors, the four important features are: one is the degree of differentiation and anaplasia, second one is the rate of growth, then the third and fourth points, that is invasion and metastasis. Both these feature, invasion and metastasis, these two features are usually are found only in case of the malignant tumors. Benign tumors normally are benign tumors do not invade or metastasis. So that is the most distinguishing feature of or it is also called as the biological hallmarks of a cancer or malignant tumor. When I say cancer, it means a malignant neoplasm or malignant tumor. So invasion and metastasis are the biological hallmarks of a cancer or tumor, malignant form of the tumors or neoplasms. So what do you mean by invasion and metastasis? So when you see this picture, it will be more clearly visible. So in this picture, if you closely observe, this is a picture, a schematic of a leiomyoma. It's a schematic of leiomyoma. This is in the where I am moving the cursor. It is the benign case. It's a benign tumor. So in case of benign tumors, they grow usually by expansion. Benign tumors grow by expansion. See that the growth is clearly demarcated from the normal. So this is a normal tissue. This is a neoplastic growth. You can find a zone of demarcation between the benign and the benign tumors and the normal cells. But then on the left side, where I am moving the cursor now, it is a malignant tumor. So malignant tumors usually grow by invasion. See the picture here. See here, there is no line of demarcation. There is no. So that is what you normally say it as encapsulation. Usually benign tumors are encapsulated. It is having a capsule surrounding the tumor mass, which helps in differentiating it from the normal structures. But in case of malignant tumors, normally you don't find that encapsulation. Malignant tumors are more aggressive. They grow by invasion. See that it is invading into the normal parenchyma. So see that clearly the schematic differences. So that is why when you go for surgery, when you go for surgical removal, you can easily remove this part because it is having a capsule surrounding it. So you can easily remove this surgically. You can remove that mass, and so the animal can recover back. But in case of malignant tumors, because it is invading, you cannot differentiate a normal tissue and a tumorous tissue or the neoplastic tissue. So that's why surgical removal is not possible, or it is difficult. Otherwise, if you go for surgical removal, you have to remove the entire uterus. Then only you can control the growth. So that is, of course, that is an example of a uterus. But if in case of some brain tumor, if it is in a brain tumor, you cannot remove the brain because animal will not serve. So that is why malignant tumors are usually fatal. They are difficult to control, or they are usually fatal in conditions. Just a minute, some of your friends are joining. Okay, so that is the difference between a benign and malignant tumor. So in this picture again, see this gross picture. In this picture also there is, you can clearly see this is a tumorous mass. You can find a clear encapsule. See, this is a fibrous covering, fibrous tissue covering, which demarcates this tumorous growth from a normal tissue. This is a normal tissue. So similarly, when you go for histological examination, this is a gross picture. You can find a capsule here, or there is called fibrous encapsulation. There is fibrous encapsulation. When you go for histopathology, you can again say this is a tumor mass. This is a adenoma of a uterine, in the mammary gland. Adenoma in the mammary gland. So here you can find this is a tumorous mass, and this is a normal structure, normal tumor means the normal mammary gland, and you can find these structures. What is these fibrous tissues which is proliferating? This is called as fibrous encapsulation. So you can find clearly a capsule which separates the tumorous tissue from the normal tissue. So that is what generally you find a point of differentiation is that benign tumors usually grow by expansion. So expansion means, say if it is a tumor growth, so slowly it expands, and then it do not invade into the normal tissue. So it is grows by expansion. So that because of that expansive nature, because of that type of growth, normally you can find a fibrous encapsulation. How this fibrous encapsulation is formed? So just for your understanding, say when the tumor grows, it exerts pressure on the normal structures surrounding these are normal structures. It exerts pressure on the normal structures. When it puts pressure on the normal structures, what happens? These normal structures, it tries to protect themselves by forming a encapsulation, by forming fibrous tissues. So that is what generally you find a point of differentiation is that benign tumors usually grow by expansion. So expansion means, say if it is a tumor growth, so slowly it expands, and then it do not invade into the normal tissue. So it is grows by expansion. So that because of that So that fibrous tissue formation is stimulated by the factors secreted by the normal structures or normal cells surrounding the tumorous mass. So that normal cells, because of in a protective mechanism, because it exerts this tumor growth, it exerts pressure on the normal structures, they secrete certain chemokines and various types of chemokines and secretory factors which favors the growth of the fibrous tissue, so that it protects itself. This fibrous tissue forms a protective covering by forming a protective covering from the normal mass. So that is what you have. That is what happens in case of benign tumors. Just a minute. Okay, so this is again second picture. You can find this is a gross and microscopic picture. See this gross picture, where you differentiate, see this one, you can clearly find a line of demarcation. This is a line of demarcation, and this is a normal structure. There is a fibrous capsule which protects itself. So in the second picture, when you go for this picture, you can see here the cells, you cannot differentiate between the normal structures and the tumorous tissue. So these white structures are the tumorous mass and the yellow structures are the normal tissue. So you can find, see even here, you can find the normal tissue and the tumorous mass are means it remains together. So it becomes very difficult to surgically remove that. If you want to remove this, you have to remove the entire mass here. The entire mass you have to remove. That means almost 50 to 60% of the entire tissue. So in that case, the animal will not survive. So that is a major constraint in case of the malignant tumors. Again, this is a microscopic picture, means the histopathological picture. You can find, see, this is a normal, this is a tumor. You can find it is invading, it is finger-like projections, it is invading into the, see here, it is invading. There is no capsulation, there is no demarcation between the tumorous tissue and the normal tissue. So that is what you say, that the tumors, benign tumors usually grow by expansion and the malignant tumors grow by invasion. So because of that slowly growth, because of the benign tumors grow slower also, it goes by expansion. You can find a clearly defined encapsulation which makes it as a movable mass and can easily be readily removed by surgical removals. Whereas in case of cancerous cells, you normally do not find that capsulation. So that is, I have already explained these points, what is mentioned here. So that is about the invasion. Then the next, so but then not only invasion. So you see, there are the next step, the invasion and metastasis are the features which are what you can say, it is intermixed with each other. They both of them are the features which can be seen, as I told, it is seen only in case of the malignant type of tumors. So whenever you find that a tumor is having an invasive feature or invasive nature, then you can find those tumors usually undergo metastasis. So what is then metastasis? So this is a schematic which explains again what is the different features of the invasion. Say in case of, so this is a primary tumor. So this is a tumor mass. In this tumor mass, again, this is a localized invasion. That means the tumor is invading from here. It is invading into the mass, and then once it invades into the structure, means the extracellular. This is actually the extracellular matrix. Then slowly it enters into the blood circulation. Through the blood circulation, it goes to the systemic circulation, and through the systemic circulation, it goes into the different body parts. So that process is called as metastasis. So metastasis basically refers to the movement of the tumor cells from the primary site to the secondary site, which is physically discontinuous with the primary site. So basically, so it is a feature where you can find, say this is one tumor, say it is this part is a you can say a liver. This is a liver, a tumor in the liver. So from the liver, the cells are moving into the tumor cells are moving into the circulation. Not only through it, not only goes through circulation, can go through various routes that we will be discussing subsequently. So it can enter into the lymphatics or through the circulation. It enters into the heart. From the heart, it goes into the different bodies. Like it can go to the lungs, it can go to the brain. Sorry, the bones. It can go into the brain. Why these pictures are put? The heart, lungs, bones, and brain, because this is a common site for metastasis. So it enters into the blood circulation. Through the blood circulation, it goes into the lungs. It can go to the bones. It can go to the brain, and then from there it forms a secondary growth. So this is a growth. This is actually the tumor in the liver, but these tumor cells are growing into the going into the lungs, and then it is growing in the lungs, or it is going in the bone, or it is going in the brain, growing in the brain. So that is what you normally say it as metastasis. That is a process by which a tumor moves from the primary site, that is the site of growth, say liver. From the liver, it goes to the lungs, it goes to the intestine, it goes to the brain, it goes to the bone marrow. So this is a process of metastasis. That is a process called as metastasis. Metastasis. Remember the word metastasis. Metastasis. Or it is also called as SIZZE, is it metastasis? Both these words you will find is that degradation of the extracellular matrix. Degradation of the extracellular matrix. This degradation of the extracellular matrix, it is again a multiple step process. Of course, we will be, if time permits, we will discuss later on. But right now, we will just see only the superficial aspects of this process. So third one is attachment to novel extracellular matrix component. Novel extracellular matrix component. Fourth one is the migration of the tumor cells. So that is migration means movement of the tumor cells. So these are the major steps involved in the invasion process. Changes in the cell-cell interaction, degradation of the extracellular matrix, attachment to the novel extracellular matrix component, and the migration of the tumor cells. So first step is the changes in the tumor cell-cell interaction. What are the changes you normally find here? This is again a schematic. So these are different words here mentioned here. You see, someone has joined. Okay, it seems he has left. Can you see the picture?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in this one, see, this is one tumor cell. This is another tumor cell. This is again a schematic. See, these are the numbers, words which are mentioned here. A. What is A? A stands for cadherins. B stands for catenins. So these are different types of adhesion molecules which is present between the cells and the cell and the this is a matrix extracellular. This is a basement membrane. This is the basement membrane or extracellular matrix in which the cells are bound. So the cells in between them, they are also attached, and they are also attached to the basement membrane or extracellular matrix. This is a matrix because any cell for its growth, if it is a normal cell, it requires some attachment, unlike in case of tumor cells. So that is of course we will be discussing in different properties of the tumor cells subsequently. But you have to remember, for a normal cell to multiply, it cannot if it is free, except of course there are some cells like blood cells which can multiply. Otherwise, if the cells are, it is a tissue type of cells like epithelial cells or mesenchymal cells, whatever the type of cells may be, if they are attached with any hard matrix substance, hard matrix, that is extracellular matrix, then only the cells can multiply. But then tumor cells can multiply even without the matrix. That is an important property of a tumor cell. So that is how this basically what we are discussing now is that how the cell-cell interaction is reduced. What happens? The major change what you will find is that there will be reduced expression of these cadherins. That is number A, cadherins. Cadherins are the what you can say transmembrane proteins which helps in binding with each other. This is one tumor cell. This is another tumor cell. Not only tumor cell, any type of cell. They are bound with each other by cadherins, and these cadherins interact with the intracellular protein that is called as catenins. So in majority of the tumors, you can find there is reduced expression of these cadherins. Cadherins are reduced in expression, or in some of the tumors, the catenins can be reduced. In either case, the cell's interaction between the cell is reduced. The cells are not closely bound with each other. They are loosely attached with each other. So that is a major point which takes place or which helps in the loosening of the cells. The cell becomes loosened from each other. So there is reduced expression of cadherins or catenins. But majority among these two, cadherins are the most commonly affected. Cadherins are, most of the cases, cadherins are reduced. In some cases, catenins can also be reduced. Whatever the case may be, for these cells to be interacting with each other, both these structures are required. When each of them is present in sufficient quantities, then only for each molecule of cadherin, there should be a molecule of catenin. So whether it is A or reduced or B or reduced, you can find the cell-cell interaction is reduced. Then another important factor which helps in the helps in the interaction between the cell and the cell interaction is the actin cytoskeletons. This type number means typed as C. Site actin cytoskeletons. So these cytoskeletons are also this is a complex mechanism which involves all these structures A, B, and C. So when there is this A or B or C is affected, then the cells will not be able to interact with each other properly. So they become loosened. They are detached from each other. They detach from each other and it becomes loosened. So that is the major factor. Then the other important feature is that from the detachment is the detachment from the basement membrane. For the detachment from the basement membrane, there is the integrins are important. The integrins are important. So that integrins are the molecules which helps in the binding of the cell with the basement membrane or the extracellular matrix. So when there is defect in the integrins, then their binding with the extracellular matrix is reduced. So again, they will be loosely, they can easily separate, they get easily separated from the extracellular matrix. Then there will be changes in the expression of some of the other compounds like collagen, fibronectin, and Of course, the N is the nucleus. That has nothing to do with the present discussion. So there is a there may be changes in the collagen and fibronectin. The type of collagen and fibronectin which is expressed is also changed. Say sometimes the collagens, there are different types of collagen. Collagen is of different types, A, B, C, D. There are different forms of collagens. So when there is any neoplastic growth, the normal type of collagen is not found. The normally, which is a collagen which is required for the growth of means the interaction of the cell with the extracellular matrix, that collagen is not present. There is a different types of collagens are expressed. So that also reduces the interaction between the cell and the extracellular matrix. Similarly with the fibronectin. So these are some of the changes which takes place, which results in the loosening of the cell from one another, as well as from the loosening of the cells from the extracellular matrix. So because of that, the tumor cells are loosely attached between them as well as from the extracellular matrix. So that is the first step, the first major step in the invasion process. Then just a minute. Yeah. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is the first step, that is loosening of the tumor cell interaction. The second step is the, this we have already discussed. The second one is the degradation of the extracellular matrix. So how this degradation of the extracellular matrix takes place? That is basically due to the elaboration of various type of proteases. So tumors, which can be this, there are different types of proteases. The most important one is the matrix metalloproteinases. There are different types of proteases are available. Many of them are there. The most important one is the MMPs, which is usually abbreviated as MMPs. So proteases, what is the proteases term stands for? What do you mean by proteases?
Protein digesting enzymes.
Yeah, enzymes which digest the proteins. So it breaks down the proteins. So that is, various types of proteases are reduced or secreted by the tumor cells. Not only the tumor cells and the supporting stromal structures. The stromal cells which is associated with the tumor growth. I think we have already discussed while discussing about the tumor. For any tumor to grow, it requires two components. One is the parenchymatous cell, that is the actual cell from which the tumor develops, and the stromal component which helps or which is the framework or the supporting matrix of the tumor growth. So these two structures, either the tumor cells themselves or the stromal cells which supports the tumor's growth, they can produce various types of proteases. That includes matrix metalloproteinases, cathepsin Ds, then urokinase, plasminogen activators. These are certain types of proteases. When these proteases are released, they degrade the extracellular matrix. So that is the second step. I think we will not go into the much details of about that one. That may not be required. You just remember this much. Then the next step is attachment to the novel extracellular matrix components. So then again, for the movement, when the cell has to move, it has to attach to some other structures. So that is what you can say, attachment to the novel extracellular components. That is what what we have discussed, like the collagen, changes in the collagen. So cleavage of the basement membrane, like collagen 4 and laminins. This collagen 4 and laminins, they are broken down by this matrix metalloproteinases, and then when they are broken down, they act as a framework, the medium on which the cells can move. For the movement of the cell, they have to attach on certain structures. So then when they go and attach on these collagens and laminins, they help in the migration of the cells. Then the third one is the migration of the tumor cells. So that migration or locomotion, that is how the cells can move. So that can be either in the form of amoeboid movement, amoeboid-like structures, amoeboid movement, or it may be induced by the secreted chemotactic movement by cytokines. This release of various cytokines. I think these things may not be required for review at this stage, but you just remember it can be either by amoeboid movement or it can be induced by cytokines or chemokine mediated movement. So that much you remember, that is a migration of the cells, tumor cells. So this is about invasion. So up to this stage, the migration it is local. Until this stage, the invasion is local. That means the tumor is up to this one. It is not entering into the blood circulation. So far, it is only localized. So all these stages, it involves only the primary site of growth. Then once it enters into the blood circulation, then it becomes metastasis. Say this is a tumors. This is a basement. This is a matrix, the extracellular matrix. This is a basement membrane. So this is another basement membrane in which the tumors are go. So the tumors, the metastatic steps in the metastasis. What happens? The clonal expansion. That clonal expansion means in a tumor mass, not all the cells which is proliferating have the potential to migrate. There are certain type of mitosis. That means you see this. Of course, we'll be discussing how this tumor cell develops subsequently. You just remember now that a tumor cell, for it to become a metastatic cell, it requires certain degree of different types of mutations. Multiple different types of mutations are required for a cell to become a metastatic type. So when there are only certain types of mutations which can help in the tumor cell to migrate. Not all the tumor cells can migrate. So those clones of tumor cells which have the potential to migrate, what they do, they break down they become loosened. That is the loosening from one another, first step. Then they break down the extracellular matrix. Then they attach to the new extracellular matrix component, and then they start movement either by amoeboid movement or by the chemotaxis, either of these steps. Then slowly it moves from the primary site. This is the primary site. Then it moves to the extracellular matrix, and then the next step is the intravasation. That is called as intravasation. Intravasation means a cell entering into the blood circulation. Cell is entering into the blood circulation. The tumor cell is entering into intra. Intra means inside. Vasation means vascular tissue. Intravasation is the next step. So that is intravasation. Once it goes into the blood vessel, then through the blood vessel and in lymphatics, it can be by various route we can metastasis, either through lymphatics or through the blood vessels, whatever the case may be. So through them, these cells, they can flow in the bloods, and then they migrate in the blood vessel. Along the blood vessel, they migrate, and then it goes and attaches on the surface of the blood vessels at the secondary site. Secondary site, they go and attach on the surface of the blood vessels, these tumor cells. There it releases various types of cytokines which degrades again the whatever the step which has taken place previously. Here it is in the reverse direction. Again, there will be first a loosening of the cells, then release of the breakdown of the extracellular matrix, attachment of the extracellular the novel extracellular matrix with the tumor cells, then movement of the tumor cells to the secondary site. So then the tumor cell starts growing in the secondary site. So all these process, it is called as metastasis. So again, you have to remember there is the word metastasis, SIS. It stands for the process by which the primary cells moves from the primary site to the secondary site. There is another word which stands for metastasis. METASTASES. It's not SIS. Remember, it is SES. When you use the term metastasis, SES, then it usually refers to the growth which is present on the secondary site. It doesn't involve the process by which it moves. The process by which it moves, it is usually referred to as SIS, metastasis. When you use the term SES, metastasis, then it usually refers to the secondary growth. This part, only this one where the tumor is growing, tumor cell is growing, that tumor mass is usually referred to as metastasis, SES. When you say SES, it refers to the secondary growth, not the process of movement. The process of movement from the primary site to the secondary site, it is called as SIS, and once it grows in the secondary site and multiplies there, then you normally refer to them as SES, metastasis, SES, the growth which is taking place in the secondary site. So that is about metastasis. Then coming to the different modes of metastasis, how this metastasis can take place. There are three major routes by which the metastasis can take place. One is called as the seeding, which usually takes place with the tumors associated with the body cavities. This type of process, seeding process, it takes place usually with the tumors which is taking place in the body cavities. Say some type of a peritoneal cavity, or it can be any body cavity. It's a peritoneal cavity or thoracic cavity or pericardium. So if it is any type of cavities, especially the mesotheliomas. So these cells are, it can involve, let's say, if it is a tumor of the liver, there is hepatoma or hepatocellular carcinoma. So the liver is inside the thoracic cavity. So from the tumor cells, tumor cell from the liver can fall off from that tumorous growth or the cancerous growth, and then it can fall into the peritoneum. In that case, the tumor cells from the liver, it is falling off. That is called as seeding. Seed. You have something like you have seed. So if you are planting a seed, the seed means you are throwing or you are putting a seed, and that seeds goes and it helps or it lays down in the soil. That is here in the soil. What do you say? The soil here refers to the peritoneal cavity or any type of cavity membranes. So that is what you call as seeding. But it is mostly found in case of body cavities. Then the second one is the lymphatics. Most of the times, these lymphatic routes are used by carcinomas. In general, carcinomas metastasis by lymphatics. Again, it's not mandatory that all carcinomas should go through lymphatics. No, but predominantly, most of the times, carcinomas move through lymphatics. Carcinomas can also move through hematogenous route. Sometimes carcinomas can also move through the seeding process also. But then, most of the times, predominantly, carcinomas moves by lymphatic routes. Then, there is another route of transmission, that is hematogenous route. Hematogenous spread. So hematogenous spread mostly takes place in case of sarcomas. Sarcomas generally metastasis by hematogenous route. Hematogenous, when you say, it is through blood circulation. Again, you have to remember here, the lymphatics and hematogenous are interconnected. When a cell enters through the lymphatics, ultimately this lymphatic goes and joins with the blood circulation only. So, lymphatic route can also ultimately result in the hematogenous spread of the tumorous cells. So, these are different ways in which the tumor cells can spread. Metastasis can take place by seeding process, which mostly takes place in the body cavities, by lymphatics, which mostly takes place in case of carcinomas, and hematogenous spread, which mostly takes place in case of sarcomas. Then just a minute. Okay. So there are some other points which we have to remember in case of metastasis. That is the most common site for metastasis. The most common site of metastasis. So the major organs in which metastasis takes place includes liver and lungs. These are the most common site. Liver and lungs are the most common site for metastasis, especially the lung. Because when you remember the blood circulation, we have already discussed while discussing about embolus. When you remember embolus, what are the major site for means location in case of embolus? Can anyone tell? Remember? The major site of deposition of embolic mass. Anyone? So no one is able to recollect it. Okay. So when we are discussing about embolus, we have already discussed that these embolus, when it enters into the veins, in the venous circulation, the arteries means the blood vessels in the venous side, that means in the venous side of the blood circulation, the blood vessels are gradually increasing in size, isn't it? Is it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In the venous side, the blood vessels usually gradually increases in size. So the embolus, which tumor cells also, you have to remember, tumor is nothing, when it enters into the lymphatics or in the blood circulation, it is something like an embolus, because it is a foreign body into the blood circulation or the lymphatic circulation. It's a foreign structure which is not normally found in the lymphatics or in the blood vessels. So it is more or less like an embolus. So it is similar to an embolus. It's a tumorous emboli of the tumor cells. So when the tumor cells, blood vessels becomes gradually bigger in size, then these blood vessels, all that, when there is any type of tumors in the venous side, normally you don't find the venous side itself, metastasis is not that common, because blood vessels are increasing in size. Slowly it moves to the heart. From the heart, again it goes into the lungs. So the lungs are the first organs which gets blood supply from the heart. So when it reaches the lungs, the blood vessels again gradually becomes smaller and smaller, because it becomes arterial side. So you have to remember, the arterial sides, the blood vessels gradually become smaller and smaller. In the venous side, the blood vessels becomes gradually larger and larger. So in the venous side, you normally don't find the metastatic changes normally. Remember, especially when it is through the hematogenous route, not with the lymphatics. Even in the lymphatics, you can find it in the lymph nodes, you can find, When it is mostly through hematogenous route, then normally you don't find it in the venous side. The organs involved are very less. Then once it goes into the lungs, the capillaries means the blood vessel becomes smaller in size, and so the embolus gets lodged in the lungs. So the lungs are the major site which is exposed to the embolus. So the tumor grows in the lungs. So the lungs are the primary site for the metastatic growth. Then it is more common in liver. Why in case of liver? Because liver is having a dual circulation. It gets blood supply from the portal veins. So whatever any type of tumor which is taking place in the intestine or in the digestive system, they have the ability to enter into the liver first. And another major reason is that liver is also a highly vascular tissue. It is a highly vascular tissue which is having a lot of blood supply in it. So because of these factors, lungs and livers are the most common site for the metastasis. Then other than that, you can also find metastasis is more common in case of brain than in case of bone marrows or bones, or bone marrows also are the common site for metastasis. Then again, one more point you have to remember is that there are certain tissues which are not favorable for the growth of metastasis. The most characteristic example what you can give is the muscles. The muscle cells or muscle tissue is closely bound with each other. It's tightly bound with each other. Normally, they do not allow the entry of the tumor cells into the musculature. So muscle, you don't find normally metastasis doesn't take place in the muscle. Of course, primary tumor can take place in the muscle. Primary tumors can take place, but metastatic growth cannot take place in case of muscle. Similarly, you find spleen. Spleen is another important organ where you don't find metastasis. That is mainly because of the presence of spleen is a highly phagocytic organ. Because of its reticuloendothelial system. The reticuloendothelial system is highly developed in case of spleen, which do not allow the growth of tumorous cells. Because these tumor cells is more or less like a foreign cells. So when it goes into the spleen, they are usually phagocytized and removed from the system by the phagocytic cells. So these are some examples where it do not found. So the common site are the lungs and the liver, and to some extent you can also find in case of kidneys also, but then kidney is not that common site because of its high vascular nature. You can expect the kidney to be the another common site for metastasis, but generally not that common. But it is more common in case of bones and brain also. It is quite commonly found. So this is about the metastasis. So this is about the various points of differentiation between the benign and malignant tumors. So what we have to remember here, metastasis, again you have to remember, it doesn't take place in case of the benign. Metastasis is usually found in case of malignant tumors only. So invasion and metastasis are features of malignancy. Okay, so these are some of the criteria based on which you can differentiate between benign and malignant tumors. So that is all about the different points of differentiation between benign and malignant tumors. So the next topic what we are going to discuss is etiology of tumor or etiology of neoplasm. So causes, etiology, when you say, it means the causes, how the neoplasm can take place. So this etiology of neoplasms, when you say, usually there are two major categories or two major groups of factors which are responsible for the tumor development. One is called as the intrinsic factor, another one is called as the extrinsic factor. Intrinsics, as the name indicates, intrinsic means something which is inside. So the intrinsic factors basically refers to the factors which are found within the individual, within the animal, which can favor which can favor or unfavor the growth of the tumor cells. So that is intrinsic factors. Say hereditary factors, age, sex, then pigmentation, degree of pigmentation, then the immune system or immune status of the animal. So these are some of the factors which are intrinsic, which is present within. So these again, these intrinsic factors are also refers in case, especially in case of neoplasms, they are usually referred to as epigenetic factors. Epigenetic factors or environmental factors. Sorry, not environmental, epigenetic factors. Intrinsic factors. So which is those which is present inside them, which is controlled by the, means which is present inside the animal itself. Then extrinsic factors are the actual causes. The extrinsic factors are refers to the actual causes of the tumors. Actually, these are responsible for mutation. So this can include chemicals, which are very common, radiation, viral. These are the most common causes of the tumors in case of animals. Other than that, you can also find other factors like hormones, parasite, bacteria, and even sometimes chronic irritation is also considered to be a cause. Chronic irritation is also referred to as a cause for tumorous growth. So these are some of the extrinsic factors or the what you can say, the actual causes of that mutation. These are these chemical, radiations, viral factors. They actually cause the mutation. So only when there is any mutation, non-lethal mutation, then only tumor develops. Then of course we'll be discussing about this in your pathogenesis, how the tumor develops. But then basically you have to remember, for any tumor to develop, neoplasm to develop, there should be a non-lethal mutation. Mutation which should be non-lethal. There is number of mutation taking place in the body. Normally also number of cells are undergoing mutation, but majority of them are removed by the body's own defense mechanism. There are some type of mutations which are not recognized by the body's defense mechanism, which escapes the body's defense mechanism, which results in the survivability of the cells. The mutated cells can survive because of they can escape from the immune system. So that is why we are using the term non-lethal mutation. So the non-lethal mutation forms the basis for any type of neoplasm to develop. It forms the heart of the pathogenesis of cancer or neoplasm. So for the non-lethal mutation, it can be caused by all these factors: chemicals, radiation, virals, hormones, parasite, bacteria, chronic irritation. Any of them can cause the mutation. These intrinsic factors, they basically do not cause the mutations, but they can predispose the animal to a certain degree. Say for instance, hereditary factors. Say example, a good example is in case of humans. You have to remember, individually I will discuss each of these topics separately. So hereditary factors. So when we say hereditary factors, it can include different types of breed, sex, means breed, species, strains, all those hereditary factors. There are certain breeds which are more susceptible to tumors. Say for instance, the brachycephalic breeds, those which is having the shortened nose, like bulldogs, then pug. It's usually found brachycephalic breeds are more susceptible to tumors of the head and neck region. Generally, I don't know the exact the reason is not identified, but it has been found that brachycephalic breeds, it is the tumors of the head and neck regions are more common. Similarly, in humans, when you say humans, a very good example is the breast cancer. So breast cancer in case of females are quite common. In case of humans, it is very commonly seen. It is generally observed that if you are in your family, some of your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents had the history of having the breast cancer, then the chances of you getting breast cancer is more in comparison to those females where there is no history of breast cancer. Clear? So that is hereditary factors. Then the second factor is age. So when you say age, it is generally found that sarcomas are more common in comparatively younger age groups than the carcinomas. Carcinomas are more common in older age animals. Sarcomas are more common in younger aged animals. Of course, in general, you have to remember age. When you say age as a factor itself, usually neoplasms are more common in older age because the mutation to take place and the cell to develop or the mutation to develop, it requires a long duration. It requires years. So in general, as a whole, you have to remember when you say cancer or neoplasms, when you say neoplasm, incidence of neoplasm, when you take into consideration, you have to remember that incidence of neoplasms are more common in older age than the younger animals. So that is another age factor. Among that older age itself, sarcomas are more common in comparatively younger age groups than the carcinomas. So that is age. Then another factor, intrinsic factor, is in which can influence the tumor development is sex of the animals. So it is generally found the female animals, especially the tumors associated with the reproductive system, tumors associated with the reproductive system are comparatively more common in case of female animals than in case of male animals. That is mainly because of the factor that estrogen and progesterone are found to be anabolic in nature. They are highly anabolic in nature. That means which favors the multiplication. Estrogen is a anabolic hormone, so which helps in the multiplication. So that has been found to influence the incidence of tumors in case of the females. So that is one factor. Sex can also be a factor. Say, as I told, reproductive tumors are more common in case of females than in case of males because of the various, most important one is that due to the anabolic steroids or anabolic hormones like estrogen. Then pigmentation. So when you say pigmentation, it is generally found incidence of tumors are less common in case of dark skinned animals or dark skinned individuals than the lighter skinned animals. So a good example for this case you can give is the incidence of squamous cell carcinoma in case of the eyelid. You say in case of Hereford cattle, there is Hereford is a breed of cattle which is having a white eyelid. The eyelid is white in color, means the eye, especially the surrounding the eye, you can find a white zone, white-eyed animals. So it is generally found the incidence of squamous cell carcinomas in the eyelid of the Hereford cattle is more common compared to the other animals, because there in case of eye, the white areas, it is having that lesser amount of melanin pigments. These melanin pigments are highly protective in nature in protecting in reducing the incidence of mutation. They protect the skin from getting mutated, skin cells from getting mutated. So they are protective, have a protective property, melanin pigments. So that is pigmentation. So that generally it is found the pigmentation, the light-skinned animals are more susceptible to skin tumors caused by the radiations or for any type of ultraviolet radiations or the sunlight in comparison to the dark-skinned animals because of the presence of melanin, protective pigments. Then immunity. So immunity, generally it is found that those immunocompromised animal, compromised individual. So it is not much of work is available in means animals, but a good example again you can give is in case of humans. In case of humans, it has been found that incidence of sarcoma, there is a condition called as Kaposi's sarcoma. Kaposi's sarcoma, it is more common in case of HIV infected animals. So you know that in case of HIV infection, there is immunosuppression. The immune system of the individual goes down. So in those individuals, this incidence of sarcoma is found to be more in comparison to the normal individual. So that is an example to show that when the animal is immune, when an individual is immunologically strong, then the incidence of neoplasms is reduced. So these are some of the intrinsic factors which can predispose the animal for the development of tumors. Then, of course, we will stop here. Then we will subsequently, the subsequent classes, we will go into the extrinsic causes and how they are responsible for mutations and tumor formation in different individuals or animals. So with that, we will stop for today's class. If you have any doubts and any queries, you can ask. If any doubts? If not, okay, we will stop there. We will continue in the next class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.